Is that the in-kind match, or is that that's being paid by the feds?
$58,000 required, but if we paid all of Harris Street, I think we came back at $120,000, and so we've already set that aside cash-wise.
Okay.
That money is
South Main Street sidewalks that we're possibly looking at doing, is that included this year's budget, this
no,
coming
we
year?
will include it if, by appropriation, if we get approval. We have not applied. But remember, it takes a year or two to get the
Correct.
paperwork and all that. And
That's a revenue share project.
That's a project we need to push hard.
It is. The only thing I ask the council to do is if we are lucky to get that grant, and I pray we are, really serious thought's got to be given to when the pedestrian walks along the Dollar General, the Goodwill side of the road. When they finally do reach their destination at Walmart, how are we going to get them across the road without getting killed?
Well,
Or having to run, or disabled people, the guy in the wheelchair, all that
Serious
stuff.
problem.
1 or 2 meetings ago, you've made a comment pretty similar to that, and we've extended the project down to the traffic signal.
To the traffic
For just
light.
that purpose.
But
We were gonna
even
stop
that,
Fair Street.
I don't care if you had the world's best traffic signals and there wasn't that many cars coming, making that cross, which is it's wider than you think. When you're on foot, that's a wide distance across. I'd be a nervous cat, and I just really, not much more we can
I'd
do.
rather be concentrated to one spot
Yeah,
and that's when we probably ought to start talking about, we had agreed, not this council, but the council before last with Barbara, about reducing the speed limit to 25 out there.
we talked about, but I'm even talking about, I'd love to hear what VDOT says, over, a little pedestrian walkway over. But then that gets too tall, because 18 wheelers, but I just really do worry about somebody really getting struck there. I mean, we had somebody got struck and killed in the 70s here on Main Street, at a red light on Main Street in the 70s.
Ugly spot.
And that's not a long walk.
So the grant application will go in this fall. If we do get it, I don't think we'll even be ready to get started this fiscal year anyhow, but next fiscal year, logically, we would start at least budgeting enough for engineering and all.
Right.
What would the cost be to do it on the same side as the Walmart?
We applied for a
Smart scale.
which is a 100% grant, and the two sides both being addressed, $3 million.
No, it was 7.2 million, I thought.
That was including widening the road.
Widening the road and relocating the overhead utilities and building what,
Ms. Hasbrook may have a point. It may be in the best interest, if it costs extra $100,000, it may be better to put it on the opposite side of the
the
road.
best place to put it is the opposite side of the road, because it's the same side as Walmart.
Walmart.
It's just a cost issue of trying to dodge around those utility poles. And if you look at the grade change, on our cell side, it's pretty soft and level.
Oh, yeah.
On that other side,
They're walking like this. I watched the person the other day. They're walking. I mean, they're walking like this, but it's their transportation is their feet. That's all they got.
the traffic is on the east side. That is the logical side. It's just the expensive side to do.
Do you think, and this is just, it's gonna have to be drilled into people's minds, that will they continue to walk on the opposite side that they currently walk on
You may very
now?
well. You may build
And so then you may
$100,000
build
of
a
sidewalk and
they
find
don't
out.
use it.
You got sidewalks on Brunswick Avenue that I never use. When I'm running and stuff,
But you're
I
faster than the cars.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you gotta look at it this way. Walmart's on that side, so, you know,
That is the best way to put
psychologically.
it.
There's no doubt, no doubt.
Well, when we get to that point, we can look at
Yeah.
cost estimates, what it would be for one or the other.
It would be ugly to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and do this and then find out there's still a goat path on the other side.
Yeah.
Put no walking over there.
But the good thing I hope the people do here is that a lot of these projects we're talking about, money has already been set aside or is being set aside. So when the time comes for a match, we'll have it, and not have to possibly do things. I mean, I've heard some things in the budget, I don't mind telling you, that concern me, but it's so early right now. I think I'm hearing from you after you finish is we'll set May 30th as a date to council to vote to advertise, probably advertise on June 5th and have a hearing at the June council meeting.
You may want to consider a little later because the Dominion numbers are supposed to be in after the 1st of June, and that may save you
A re-advertising,
a
sure.
re-advertising.
But
You do
that's-
see, we actually just, so everyone knows, we had agreed committee-wise to, we had a $4,000 reduction in DBI, but we've agreed at committee level that DBI is worth $4,000, so we see them
I
fit
commend
to
Zach,
stay as.
absolutely.
Other capital items,
Well, let me just throw one thing at you, and like I said, I don't want to get into the weeds here on this because this is really premature, but, I may be wrong, my history may be wrong, but wasn't it 2 years ago, I believe, the town was going to get 11% reduction in the rate from Dominion? It ended up being about 9 or 10.
it-
It ended up being 8, but we only reduced it by 3, so we pocketed 5%.
If I remember correctly, it turned out to be 10%, but we gave back 2 last year.
Last year we gave back 2.
reduced the rates 2%.
So we only, basically, the town quote unquote pocketed 5% of that rate decrease.
Well, and the 3% of that 5 goes specifically for fire trucks, and if you remember, that $34,000, excuse me, 1% of that specifically goes to capital activities for buying police cars or fire trucks or anything. So I would say 4% would get.
All right. The other thing I want to ask too, and again, you may not know this, I'm just curious. Is Dominion, I know we're different because we're one of 16 localities that buy and resell power. This 10% that Dominion is going to pass on to Blackstone and Manassas and Front Royal, are they also going to do it to the co-ops? Because, you know, people in the community say, man, don't live in Blackstone, it's too high there. But are our county brothers and sisters also facing? I'd like to find out about that. I know it's not really relevant.
I assume so, but I don't know the answer.
I'd like to know because,
I hope so.
well, but I would like to find out because I am hearing discontent out there about the rising price of living in Blackstone. And a lot of our, you know, when we know that 74% of our people are low to moderate income, and I knocked on doors last spring as many of y'all did, there's a lot of homes here that don't have anybody in them. We've lost population. I do fear there's an exodus going on. And that's going on throughout rural America. But
that's also something to think about when you talk about hiring a police officer and want them to live in town.
Yeah, I don't want to make anybody live in town, but I want to tell the chief here, I love every police officer, but when you live in Blackstone, I love you even more. I'll give you a little longer hug, just a little. But I don't want to get into that strife tonight. I don't want to cause any problems. I'm good at that. I'm good at causing drama. But go ahead, Mr. Renovak.
Another item for consumption is this is the first year since I've been here that we've actually been able to fully fund pilot payment program. When I started here in 2011, the town's pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, which would be the equivalent of what our power system would be paying in taxes, coming back to the general fund for things that we don't get money, like fire trucks and police departments that we keep on 24 hours and all those kind of things. This is the first year it's over $200,000, and this is a true and actual figure that the department is generating, and that will be transferred to the general fund to support administration, but also police and fire. And that is an accurate figure. That is 100% will be transferred, just like our GA allocation. And GA allocation is to reimburse the town for salaries for the ladies that collect utility bills and run
That
the
equates, if you were to equate that to the real estate tax, that would be, the real estate tax would be 16 cents. That's how much you'd have to go up on the real estate tax to consume that.
Logically, yeah. I mean, we've been doing great. The town is very healthy. We've got a healthy reserve. The reserve fund will be complete, locked
November.
October.
Right.
So my
We'll
point
be
is
done with
that
that.
instead of having to tax people for the services, police, fire, that the
We have an
town,
electric system for a reason.
electric
It-
system.
It has always supported your capital or your general fund activities. That's the benefit of having $4 million of cash that's coming through the town.
Right.
Are our rates excessive? I don't believe so. I do believe that we can find some leavening in it, so it's not so impactful in January and February. But our comparisons with other communities, I think we're middle of the pack. But that doesn't make somebody feel better in January.
No,
when they get a-
everything you're saying is accurate. And I will say this, folks, for y'all here, I see some new faces here. When this man took the job and started in April 2011, within 3 or 4 months, he came to me and said, we don't have money. I know a lot of y'all are tired of hearing about it, but I guess the reason I want to, is not just to praise you and the staff again, because y'all deserve it. My thing I urge council to look at is look at the long game. Look at how far we've come in just 7 years. I think sometimes, and that's a sign of a good town manager, you're aggressive, you want to do too much too fast. The town's going to be here forever. I think sometimes we need to slow down because, you know, we've gone from having no money in the bank to $4 million in the bank in the course of 7 years. That's a fact. That's a fact.
We've got about 3.4 undesignated.
You control spending. We put the clamps on ravenous spending. Money was coming in the front door, going out with not a lot of safeguards. His predecessor was a great man. He loved projects, and we just really weren't keeping accountable. You know, like for example, I think a lot of people in this building, including myself, I never want to go on my savings account. I want to just live off checking, stash money and savings. But we all know there comes a time where sometimes you're like, man, my daughter just got married. We took some money out of savings. Things come up, you have to do it.
It's a perfect example. That's what it's there for. We have a massive ice storm.
Right.
We have a tornado goes through the middle of town. If those kinds of things, and yes, a lot of that will be insurance covered, but we still got to get the power on between now and then. So I can't say it's for catastrophic, but it's for emergency type things. It's for a rainy day fund when we really are pinched, not for salaries, not for ongoing expenses. It needs to be specific to those kinds of activities that, though,
My point is that slow and steady wins a race. Like I said, I think some of the things in this budget that are just proposals are very aggressive and very ambitious, and the people of Blackstone may embrace them. I just am hearing early on the tax increase, which, like I said, we discussed ditches tonight that are probably hidden towards six figures if you did them all.
taxes increase is not necessary except for,
The ditches.
we're trying to create a
Drainage.
budget for that. For raises and that's, none of that money will go toward raises for employees. Some of the garbage increase would go towards the raises for the garbage men.
Right.
But the 4 cents would be strictly set aside in a separate account, separate fund, and then you guys, as a discretionary account.
Right. I think you may hear some on that. But anyway, what else do we have on the Finance Committee? Y'all done a great job. And the previous Finance Committees, you've been on all of them, have done a heck of a job getting this house back in order. We can't forget those people out there. We're going to hear from them, I think. What else in the budget?
We have 2 police cars in the budget. We made an application to USDA, and our intention is to buy 2 police cars.
Good.
We've got the funds in there. Our expectation is to get a $25,000 grant. Applied to $34,000 from the electric increase a few years ago, and then the difference making to a loan with USDA.
Chairman Nash, any comments you care to say on the budget? You've been front and center.
Well, I can tell you, I'm already against the real estate tax increase.
I could tell that.
But we as a committee, we wanted the whole council to be able to digest it.
Well, that's the thing.
So we didn't even really discuss it too much. My big thing is we need to figure out when we convene again to discuss as a full council after everybody digests this, so.
June 1st or 2nd. It's- Dominion's obligated by law to let us know by June 1st, right?
Supposed to let us know, they were a little late last year, but June 1st is when we should have an expectation to be here.
So do you want to say the 4th? I mean, which is on the,
That was the original calendar date we meet on the 4th.
That's a Monday or Tuesday?
Do you want to let them talk about it on the 30th and get it all out? So then when we get the FEMA numbers, that's the only thing we.
that's
Correct.
not any changes. That's fine with me. I'd rather meet one time on the 30th
Okay.
and then the next meeting be really
But I think before you put ink on it, I think
Correct.
you need your FEMA numbers.
Yeah. So this council will meet and
on the 30th.
discuss these proposals on May 30th, and then probably you're looking at a public hearing sometime in June, and they'll all be advertised, and we'll talk about it here every time we meet. All right, anything else on the budget? We've got one last committee, the always busy Buildings, Property, and Cemetery Committee, Ms. Hasbrook, and headstones and cemeteries came up again.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The Daniel family had purchased 16 graves, which is the equivalent of 2 8-grave sections.
Wow.
Okay, they have 16. There's one individual buried, Tommy, if you guys remember Tommy Daniel, he's
Very
he's
well.
right there. The headstone was placed in the correct location based on policy, in the center of the 8-grave plot. Section. They're asking that the headstone be moved over 2 spaces so that it's directly over the top of Tommy, and I assume his spouse at some point. And the other side of the stone actually has another name engraved on it, which is Patterson, which is fine. But those are 2 graves that are intended for them. They would be entitled in 16 graves to have 2 upright stones. And they
There's
would-
one per 8-grave lot. What happens to the Pattersons in agreement? Their stone would be
I think
moved?
they're family.
Okay, that's right, she was a
So they're
Patterson.
asking for, instead of 2, they want 4.
Okay. At their expense, they would have moved this.
They've got to move the stones and do all that kind of.
That's the committee's recommendation.
Yes, it is.
Is that a motion, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is there a second to her motion to allow the Daniel family to move the headstone?
Second.
Mr. Nash is second. Any further discussion?
And allow up to 3 more, is that right?
Yes, allow up to 3 additional headstones in the future.
And we've asked Philip that in the future, instruct people that it is cheaper in the long run just to buy a 4-grave spot. And then you don't have to go through this process.
That's right.
You can just.
Do one for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. C Park 100-mile yard sale.
The committee recommended allowing people to set up for yard sales in Sea Park on July 6th with no parking on Main Street.
Is that a motion as well, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Second to the motion? Only thing I'd ask Chief Kuzmak, only because I get to go to council supervisor meetings, they've had problems on the western end of the county on that day. People they see yard sale and they just pull off on the side of the road. We might want to have cones or something just on the sidewalk or Sea Park, just to prevent some people from starting to park there. Because I've talked to a lot of people, and it's crazy up in the western end. And they're advertising Blackstone this year as being the actual start, the origin of the 100-mile yard sale. So I think it's a great recommendation. Just let's be careful that day, and you'll have at least 2 people working.
I think Philip said he was gonna talk to Chief and try to get some signs made.
Yeah,
Like no
I think they're
parking
needed
sign,
that day.
Are we also gonna have people in town square?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be both places.
Yeah, there was
that
one
been worked
question
out?
about that, and I haven't got an answer yet, but I think that spaces were being sold or leased for $10 a piece, and I think the committee wanted to know, where's that money going for leasing spaces in the square?
Yeah, my understanding is it's the People's Square, and it's free that day.
If it's going to a
That's the
nonprofit,
plan.
It is free, I mean, Rebecca Brown, I think my town event calendar is the one orchestrating, we do have to lay out the space grid.
Right.
Comfortable with it, and to my knowledge, I found that we charge $10 per space that goes to Nottaway Allies for Palm.
That's still not the spirit of what this council approved, and council can, I mean, I love Nottaway Allies for Paul, don't get me wrong, but where the people have the space, we're saying people come, bring people to Blackstone, display your items out there, and not for anyone to come in there and say, hey, I need, it's kind of like subleasing or whatever. I mean, you can make a motion and make it right. I just think the spirit, y'all correct me wrong, we were all here. We want people to set up there and use that and bring people to Blackstone. Now, people are being told that
When she said, that wasn't presented before, was it?
the presentation was made by the yard sale committee. I never heard from anybody else other than
The
Daphne
$10
Norton.
for, that wasn't
There was not
presented.
any money
Money
discussed.
discussed.
No, not at all.
No,
So
there
is
wasn't
she
any money
charging for
discussed.
Sea Park too?
no.
I don't know.
I think we need to find out specifics about that.
How can she charge if it never came to
Well,
us?
just, just let her know that if there is a charge, it needs to come back before us for vote, so hopefully
Yeah.
it'll just be.
That's a business. That'd be like a business, you know.
Well, we
That's,
discussed it at committee, we
Yeah.
were worried, and we kinda left it at, we just need to find out
Let's
what.
put out a donation jar.
yeah, I just blurring those lines is, let's be careful. All right, no action, then street banners?
I think there was some discussion, and I think South Boston has some banners that are
Military.
military banners and actually honoring or memorializing an individual
Personalized.
who was a veteran or served. We'll find out what the prices are for those banners, and I would like to, if we're gonna move forward, like to find out how much. And we're calling the town of South Boston, find out how much
And they sell them, I think Zach, you showed me that what they do. They, if you have a family that lost a relative or just had someone to serve, they can say Corporal Jones.
It's like what Rotary does in South Hill, if you buy a flag or something that goes, or you put a huge display out on, or when you come into South Hill, kind of same concept.
Okay, Centennial Park
But
problem.
we just don't wanna do one or two. We need to get an appreciable number, so
Right.
it doesn't look so.
You want 50. I see Beverly Ames real quick.
Okay, Colonial Heights, check with them. They have on almost every one of their street lights, because I've been driving up there and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that person, wait, I know that child. It's their face and when they served and where, and what they, service they.
That's great.
That they were in. And it's really kind of impressive. And
Be-
it's been up there for at least a year.
It'd be great to have it by
Like
Veterans Day.
Every other street light going down the boulevard.
Okay, we'll get some information from other localities. That's great. Yes, Madam Clerk?
I don't think y'all voted on the 100-mile yard sale. There was a motion and a second, but I don't think there was.
All in favor of allowing Sea Park to be used for the 100-mile yard sale? Was motion made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Keep me on my toes here. Landmark signage at Swartz Tavern, the Virginia Historic Landmark.
That rascal's been sitting on the floor in Schwartz Tavern for 25 years, and it's probably time to mount it outside. I think we're gonna get it mounted on the outside.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second.
Ms. Jones is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Trash cleanup informational.
Committee will bring this back up in January 2020 to coordinate with the Rotary's Pick Up Your Pride event. I will let folks know that we're doing a cleanup now in the East End. We've got some dumpsters set out, and people can put household goods in those dumpsters. I'll go out and open the door. I don't know if people are flinging the stuff over the top, but it's not just for regular household trash, but couches, furniture, any of those kinds of things. We want to encourage folks, if we're going to work on the houses, let's get as much of that stuff put aside. 3 items that they can't take: tires, hazardous material, asbestos, and building materials. Okay? And the building materials is because oftentimes it has asbestos contamination.
Where can people take that if they have that?
If you've got asbestos-containing materials, you can't take it to the Nottaway landfill. You gotta take it to the Amelia County landfill. They will take asbestos-contaminated material.
Now what about tires?
Tires, every property owner in Blackstone in Nottaway County is entitled to carry 4 tires a month to the landfill, and they've got a huge recycling trailer. And I find them on the side of the road, or people throw them out by dumpsters. Everybody's allowed to carry 4 a month up there.
Wow. Okay, very good. Last but not least, the Fort Pickett Officers Club, which also could be called the Armory.
Much has been said about the Armory for certainly as long as I've been here, as long as you've been around, and as long as any of us have been here. There've been some discussions about moving forward, not doing things. What are we going to do? As far as staff goes, if we're going to include this in the East End project, okay, and we've set that table, okay, certainly with the comprehensive plan surveys and those kinds of things, if that is the intention of council, we do need to make a decision this summer sometime. I think I said by Labor Day, we really should know
Fair.
what we're going to do.
Fair. Fair.
I got a question.
Mr. Allman, and then I'm gonna record that. Go ahead.
If you're using that East End grant money, can you charge? I know that there's a lot of discussion on using it as a rental like the Officers Club.
Here's what we'll find. The majority, if we do it through the East End project, it's through the Department of Housing and Community Development. Same people that are working on East End now, okay, for the housing and a portion of the drainage improvements. They do have a series of rules, and that the majority, or 51% of the people that use the facility are required to have what is known as LMI status, low moderate income, okay? Not hard to do in Blackstone. 74% of the town of Blackstone meets those thresholds already, okay? They also have other activities that, they have to be activities offered in the building that specifically serve low moderate income populations, okay? Certain things like adult daycare, recreation, all those kinds of things are activities that DHCD would ultimately recognize. We hope they would recognize and would garner some grant money. I believe there's 2 pools of funds for the Armory. You've got the Industrial Revitalization Fund, if we're familiar, $600,000, we've done that.
All right.
I think Tom and Walter Mack had found some monies that were available through the feds. But this would, DHCD and working through DHCD would not allow us to charge low moderate income people for activities there.
For activities. Now, you could have it available after hours for rental. If somebody, if Luther Foster or Kinston Forest ever wanted to have a high school reunion on a Saturday night, if it's available for renting through the town office, they could pay $400 or $500.
Playing basketball, no, we're not gonna charge for playing basketball. Now, if there's something like a daycare or a senior daycare, yeah, there's gonna have to be a reasonable amount of money to help operate the activity.
Like the $1 for the ride, the 50 cents to ride Babs, the $1 ride Babs.
And it may be $5 to watch your senior parent for an afternoon or something, whatever that might be. But I think there's gonna have to be some charges, otherwise it's gonna be impractical. And certainly the town can't run a daycare center or anything like that. Right. But I don't think we're gonna be allowed to charge, just like as we learned on the VDOT grant for the Carriage Museum, they don't want us to charge people to go in there because there was grant funds involved. Right. So donations are fine, but VDOT's not supportive of us charging to go into the.
Mr. Miller had something he wanted to say.
Okay, you know, I've been thinking about this here Armory situation, and I've came up with a conclusion, and I don't know if everybody's gonna agree with it, but my recommendation is we as council, because let's face it, the Armory can't get no money, nobody can get no money unless we approve it. So my thing is, we as council, what I would like to see us do is sit down and have a workshop. And the people in the audience, they don't reply. We have this workshop, and then we have a public hearing to see where we are on the Armory and let everybody express their opinion. Because this here Armory thing is getting out of hand. And we as council, I think that we should be able to sit down, get ourselves together, and decide where we're going. Because right now, we're in left field.
Yeah.
And nobody has came up with no conclusions. And an incident happened last week. If I really wanted to be a troublemaker, I could have been. But I let it drop, and it came out to light. So all I'm saying is, why come we as council can't sit down and have a meeting and try to iron out and see where we going with this? Because, hey, the taxpayers are saying, even though town employees working at the Armory, that's taxpayer money.
Most certainly is. That's, I think that I commend the town manager for bringing that to the committee's attention. For any town resources to use. But I will say this, I went by this Saturday morning, and the volunteers, it's amazing. It's just a little bit of square footage, but the foyer and the bath, it's amazing what's been done there, and mostly by far private donations. Bill Quigg of South Main Street has done wonders through his employer and other ways. But you're right, this council does, what I'm hearing you're saying is maybe have a hearing in August, which would be before Labor Day, and give staff direction, include the Armory in the grant or don't include the Armory in phase 2.
Okay, but what about, okay, now, if you look in your packet, they're requesting for certain work to be done in the Armory.
Yes.
So how are you going to explain to the taxpayer that you're doing this? This is my thing.
Okay, and you've been very consistent about that from the get-go. And I think I will give the Armory Group credit. Most of the time now, I don't think anybody should go to any town employee and say, "Can you come work on without council approval?" But most of these repairs have been approved by council back in November. In fact, we even had a vote at the Armory to let the light be left on. And I know it hadn't always been unanimous, but I think for the most part, council has exercised oversight. The Armory volunteers have mostly been very transparent and forthcoming. There have been some episodes, I agree.
There's been episodes.
But I think everyone here would agree, let's make a decision by Labor Day. Council decide, Mr. Vornobek, included in phase 2, and you, of course, will say, look, if you get the grant,
here's my best case scenario,
Right.
and this is what the impact is cost-wise, and this is what I think, and even bring in Roland Gooch.
Cooch from
who's our
Davenport.
financial advisor, and say, all right, we've taken these budget items, we believe we can get this much in grant money, but what's the worst-case scenario as far as impact for operations and for...
But my main concern is, okay, like I say, everybody knows how I feel.
And that's fine.
But my main thing, okay, we keep on spending money. Pretty soon, the people that's in this thing is going to come back and say, okay, we done put X amount of dollars in here. You all should do the rest.
Well, they know, but they know, Mr. Miller, they do know, I agree, you're right. We're potentially setting up people for heartbreak, but they know they're doing this at great peril. I think there's great ambiguity and even doubt among some of the Army volunteers that the project may not go forward. So, but you're right. The longer, if you give somebody permission to keep doing something, then one day if there was a vote here 4-3 or 5-2 to sell the Armory, you obviously have not going to make any. You're not going to be on the Christmas card list of the Armory Group. That's for sure. But I think the Armory Committee folks, the ones I've seen in this council chambers, they're well aware they're doing this. They've undertaken this themselves at their own expense, and I think they know there's risk involved in doing that.
But my question is, why come we as council, the people elected us, why come we as council can't sit down and hammer this thing out? Because if you get, this here council hasn't appointed anybody.
Correct. Well, no council even beforehand. The Armory Group appointed themselves and got the 501c3.
Right.
Yes.
But if my thing is, if this here keeps on going on and on and on and on and on, we're not gaining anything. We're going to be sitting here this time next year looking stupid at each other with the same problem. So why not let town council sit down and kind of iron this thing out? Does anybody see anything
I don't think there's
wrong?
anyone here against that. I think everyone here would like to make a decision about Labor Day. Am I right? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
But I think we'd like to get this thing off the agenda because I'll be honest, no one's chicken, including myself, but people don't. We know that when we have the public hearing, you can turn the volume down on the mic because there are going to be some folks screaming at us saying, save that building, and there are going to be a few folks saying, if you do this, you'll never get reelected again. That just comes with the territory.
That's right.
But I think, can we agree by common consent that we will strive and we will actually hold a hearing in August so this council can have a vote before Labor Day to decide what it wants to do with the Armory. And I think mainly it's to whether or not to include it in phase 2.
Okay.
And Mr. Nash has got concerns. I think, and if you're going to do that, you must be able to tell them a rough idea what it may or may not cost the people of Blackstone.
We've had 20 public hearings, and we go to the same predicament. All right, are we hearing 5 or are we really hearing what the true citizens of Blackstone want to hear? That's why all along I've said, we need not a referendum, but a community vote. We don't know how everybody feels.
Confidential
That's
vote. Right.
But then again, we don't know what the end use of the building would be, so, and the price. Now, I agree that we should have a price by then, but I don't think we can determine whether the town should do it or not. I don't think having a public hearing coming up to that mic will give us our true cross-sector of Blackstone. Because you're gonna have some that are for the Armory, but they don't want their buddy down the street to know.
Everyone who speaks-
And then you're gonna
yeah.
have people that are completely against it, but they don't want their best friend to know.
And everyone's going to say that, you know, folks, I know I'm just here tonight, but I've talked to 117 people, and they all say, man, tear that thing
yeah.
down.
Right.
And you never know the truth. I mean,
But my question is, are we gonna keep on letting these people, like you got a work order here tonight for some work to be done in the Armory?
but at their expense, but at their expense, at their
No,
expense.
they're asking for town help on some of this now.
Okay, well then that's an important question.
Now, are we gonna keep on, letting this go on, or are we gonna sit down and iron it out and get it straight? And I don't think we need, if we wait till August, that might be too late. Because the Armory Group, they're gonna be pressing you, so it's time for council to sit down and say, okay, this is how we gonna do it.
It was 2 or 3 months ago, the Buildings and Property Committee had come asking for a date, but then there was some hesitation for the community voting day, so we
was.
kind of just put it on the back burner. But I mean, ultimately, that podium will not be the answer for the audience, for the Armory.
But also look on the
But
bright
I'm
side.
saying, we should be the
Oh,
answer.
yeah.
We should be the answer.
But Mr. Miller, here's the, maybe I'm too optimistic, but let's look on the bright side. In the last 2 to 3 years, these volunteers, granted, they've only raised about 60 grand. But if you walk in that building and look at what it was like in 2013, 2014, the building that's owned by the people of Blackstone today looks dramatically better at very little cost to the taxpayer. And it's still your building. You control the building. This council controls that building.
But it seems like that this council is not controlling it. It seems like you've got one person controlling it.
Right.
And another thing, you know, I can't go to my ward and tell my ward what you gonna do in this Armory when I don't know myself. Now, you putting this in Ward 8. These people in Ward 8, this is their livelihood. They should know what's going on. We as councilmen should know what's going on. You shouldn't be able to just call and say, I want this done, or I want that done.
I agree totally on that.
No.
And
We need to sit down and have a meeting and determine what we gonna do.
Right.
Because the Armory Committee cannot do nothing unless we say do it.
Right, and this council has said several times, permission granted.
We're going in a circle.
We are. What is council's pleasure? Mr. Miller, you made a good point. We've had the similar conversation about like this, but
I think the only thing you can do tonight, Mr. Miller, is approach the topic. Do we allow one town worker to go fix that one standpipe, I believe, that's in question?
If y'all
yeah,
wanna,
let's go to that right now in the
Or
report.
do we just let them keep doing what they've been approved to do at their own?
What item is that on the agenda, folks? What item is that? Is it new business?
It is, it's, number 6 under new business.
Okay. And just for the audience benefit, there's a request by the Armory Committee, which has been doing most everything on its own, to have a town employee assist them. And of course, that's your tax dollars. That's your,
Do we know what the cost of that pipe would be roughly? New business number 6.
I don't think it's new pipe, it's just cutting off the old one capping.
The old pipe that was sticking up through the floor, they just wanna cut off, flush.
It's not a new pipe, it's cutting but it's hot. There's water in it, so it's gotta be done
Gotta be capped.
cautiously, yeah. They gotta do it and put a cap on it.
My point to that question is dollar figure. I mean, what do we, if it were to be privately done, it's not like it's that big a fix, correct?
Couple $100 maybe. Have a plumber go over there.
and it is a building that's owned by, it is a town-owned building.
Are we required to maintain town-owned buildings? We maintain the other properties on.
These volunteers are allowing us to say with some degree of accuracy that the town finally, after 25 years, 31 years of owning it, is finally maintaining its building. And that has not been, when the town begged for it in 1988, it was for recreation and cultural. And somewhere around the early mid-90s, the town quit. I coached basketball in there as you did, and then one year we couldn't have it because there was so much pigeon droppings, we didn't feel it was safe for the children. What is your pleasure on new business number 6? This is to allow some more basic repairs. Most of
It's
it,
more, not only these repairs, but the way we go about it. I'm asking Walter Mack privately, publicly, please let me know what's going on.
And you should know, he did tell me this, that I didn't realize this, when I get emails, I don't see who else receives them. I think some members of this council and myself have received emails, not everybody has. He assured me that every single member of this council, and you especially, are gonna get an email as to anything that's being requested to be done.
What brought it up is, one day last week, I called Andre, because I had a couple things I wanted to get with him on East End. He said, man, I'm hung up in the Armory right now. What are you doing? He said, Walter Mack asked me to cut this pipe out, and I said, ho. We've got to process this a little better. If it's the council's pleasure that they, and 10 employees, have Walter Mack come to me and say, hey, these are the things we need to do, and we need to schedule it with the other things we got going on. And
No, sir, no, sir, no, sir.
we want not to go in that direction because it's uncomfortable for the employees. I told them all to leave the Armory. Are we in trouble? Nobody's in trouble, but we got to do better than that. That's not going to work. So everybody needs to know what's going on. We need to schedule it the same as any other tree trimming or electric line work that we have to do.
The Blackstone Rec does not go up to a town employee and say, hey, I need you to come over here and do this for me. That request goes through you.
Well, Dan's wife may get to him a little bit quicker, but yes, the request should come to me.
Facility.
That's right.
Logically, that's the way it works, and it keeps the employees from getting jammed up too. Because they're all concerned that I'm gonna punish them, but we're not punishing anybody. But guys, you can't do that anymore until someone comes back and says, we give you an affirmative. Y'all need to.
I'm gonna recognize Mr. Tom Taylor real quick. Yes, sir. That's what we're reestablishing tonight, making sure that we keep the chain of command council manager. And sometimes it gets a little sideways in a small town because you have people that are real mission project driven. But members of council, Mr. Miller, Mr. Morgan has said it best. We're back at it again. But what's your pleasure? Where do we move? What do we do tonight for people out here watching? What's the next step?
Do we have a special called meeting just for discussing and working on the?
I think you like a work session where people can attend, but the council's going to speak. We're not going to have people holler one way or another. We're going to sit here in public and resolve it, decide on a course of action. And I would guess maybe we need to do that in June or July. Sooner the better.
I agree. Talking about a course of action for the one project they're talking about now, or?
Now, you're going to vote on this tonight on this.
Okay, I was about to say, I don't think we need to.
If we're gonna do this, would it be better to just halt everything for right now over there, just so it doesn't cause any more controversy?
If we can have a meeting quickly, and if it would ease Mr. Miller's angst and angst of your constituents, that may not be the worst thing I've heard.
It's not only mine. I mean,
other people.
Evidently, I've heard it. So this is why I'm bringing it up.
Absolutely.
I mean, hey.
You're being
We're
responsive.
gonna meet on the 30th of May, and I don't know if that's enough time.
There's no way we.
That's next Thursday. That's a week from Thursday.
And if that's enough time, then June 4th we'll be meeting again, if I'm not mistaken, to
I won't be
discuss.
here.
Not June
Budget.
4th.
I thought we had
That's contingent on it.
Right. On May 30th, next Thursday, we will set a date for Armory Fest. Just call it Armory Fest.
And again, when we set this date, don't just do it in haste to say we're done.
Right.
We've got to think about the tax-paying dollars of the Blackstone. We don't want to just say, all right, we're going to do it, or either we're not going to do it, and then down the road we think, oh, well, hold on. Yeah, we need a community center that's going to cost us X amount of dollars. Or then we say we are going to do the Armory, and then, oh, we don't have the money to do the
So,
Armory.
in order to avoid controversy, do we halt everything now because we can't have town employees going to do stuff in the Armory, spending taxpayer dollars?
I say, until then, you halt the town employees going in there, but if the Armory group wants to continue doing what they're doing, so be it. I don't think we should, I mean, again, they know that it's under their own will that they're doing this.
Philip had a meeting with Walter Mack, and he explained to him why it was important that it had to come through him.
It was courteous and just
And I think
the email as a
He
result of
wasn't
that.
done with malice.
No.
He just thought he was.
But I'm saying just to avoid any further.
People see town trucks parked out there and town employees going in. That, for those that aren't in favor of the project, it does look. But I just look at the long game, folks. I don't look at next week or next year. I look at the long game. We've got a building that's 1936. It's big, and we've got a really decent sized group that's making it better week by week. And I know that at that pace, maybe I won't even live to enjoy it. But I'm just thinking long game. Long game.
You haven't been over there. Go see it.
Saturday morning was impressive.
But I'm just thinking for something small and it's the town building and he's letting us know, why not go ahead and make the repair? I mean,
Well, it doesn't seem,
Because
that's right, but it doesn't seem like it.
Because when
it
you make
enthuses
that
everyone.
repair, you are using taxpayer money, and it was simply stated that no taxpayer money would be used.
Even though it's a town-owned building. Even though it's a town-owned building.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, let me provide just some clarity,
confusion
a
of all
history
that.
lesson. The resolution that the council approved in 2014 was that as little taxpayer dollars as possible. Now, some speakers have come up here and said they don't want any taxpayer dollars used. But the position of this council has never been, we're never gonna spend a dime on the Armory. No council's ever said that, I can promise you.
Well, shouldn't the people that say that they don't want taxpayer money used, shouldn't they be able to voice their opinion?
And we've heard them, and I support their opinion. I support them in voicing their opinion. But you as a council have not made a vote. No council has said, we vote that no tax dollar from this point on is spent on the Army. That vote hadn't happened. It hadn't. That could happen tonight.
Well, he's asking you, well, what Lonnie's saying is, since we in limbo here, we need to just halt the operation until we get something straight.
And you can certainly decide that tonight if you wish.
And I think that would help both sides. Because this is a town-owned building too. Do we vote to stop doing maintenance on this building?
I would hope not.
But we could.
You could. You
I
could.
mean, you're talking about a town-owned building, whether some people support it or not, it is still town-owned.
No doubt.
Until you surplus it or use it.
So are we gonna continue to hear, well, there's a town truck parked out of there, or where's the chain of command and the, you know, it's yay or nay.
And that's what we need to, and that's all I'm asking. Either we gonna stand up and say we gonna do it, or we gonna stand up and say we not gonna do it.
Well, the good news is we're gonna have an Army meeting on this very soon. I see Jeanette Barry-Nishon with her hand up.
Yes. This isn't my first rodeo with you. But what I'm hearing is you've got a group that is giving free time, free effort, free money, it's costing you nothing. It's a town building, you're not doing the maintenance, you're not taking care of it, it's been falling down for what, 25, 30 years? Let them do what they're doing. Pull together and make a decision. One of the things I've seen through the years is the reason we're in this boat right now is because a decision was never made. There's been talk about direction and it stops. Goes in another direction and it stops. And it's been churning and churning and churning. Make a decision, but in the meantime, let them do what they're doing. Blackstone has to decide what to do with that building. They were proud of it when it was given it to them. They should be proud of it now, but it's not what it was. Somewhere along the line, the town decided it wasn't worth it.
Well, you just got busy with building a new fire station, renovating the police. You're right. We neglected.
Make a decision.
You're right.
Take care of it or put it to bed. Now, one
That's-
thing this town needs to realize is the cost it would take to get rid of it.
The floor is open for a motion. Mr. Allman, then we're going to vote.
Sounds like you need a business model for it. An actual business model on paper with this is how much it's gonna cost, this is how much it's gonna bring in. Pros and cons, this is how much it costs to clean the bathrooms twice a week for people to use it. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay for all that.
Yeah.
And the
Well-
other thing is, like you said, some kind of vote to figure out what everybody wants.
Right. Well, all good points.
I mean, I agree that with Mr. Allman, we need a business plan to present to the citizens, but the 7, 8 of us up here need something you mentioned tonight to hang our hats on for how we vote. And again, that's why we don't hear 95%, 99% of our citizens in Blackstone. We don't hear them. Community vote day, guys. I'm telling you, we need to hang our hats on a way that the community feels. We're going to keep doing this.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
right.
68 people,
Right.
68 people
I
filled out that
guarantee
survey.
you. Well,
Okay,
But I guarantee you,
100 people come
if
out.
you say something about the Army, I guarantee
Trust
you
me,
more people.
they will come out.
They will come out.
Yeah. Voter turnout in last year's elections, drum roll please, 26%.
but it's 26% opposed to the, what, 1% that we hear in here?
That's right.
We can hang our hats on 26%, 1% or the 63.
You, at least you gave opportunity to vote, right?
And then if you, like I say, if you give me an opportunity to vote and express, and voting is expressing your opinion, then whatever comes down, if the Army gets it or it doesn't get it, you have gave everybody a voice.
I think he's right, because the minute we vote, it's gonna dictate whether or not town resources can go over there and help.
Well, you
or
can still do
town
your
resources can.
community vote.
I mean, it's a town-owned building. You have circle of volunteers that have done a phenomenal job. And if they would need a town vehicle to come over there and cut something, it's a town-owned building. It's not like you're doing it, you know, for somebody making a profit off
Yeah,
of
you
it.
go in the country club and help them cut a new hole in the green. I mean, you know what I mean?
That's why
Whether we proceed with the armory or we go to sell it, technically, and I agree that whatever improvements we do to the building, hopefully we'll get back in the sale of the building.
Well, does this council want to have vote day? We talked about you can do a referendum without a registrar. You can have
We're
town
gonna
staff.
Continue the way we're sitting right here. If
Well,
we
let's do it
not.
before, let's do it about mid-June.
Yeah, let's set a voting day.
Set
How
up
are
a
you
date
gonna
mid-June.
word it so that it's
Yeah,
not
you
completely?
have to have the business plan beforehand.
How much it's gonna cost?
Yeah, you've
Well,
got to
here,
get-
breaking news, is an armory supported? Let me just tell y'all something, a stunning admission here. If you renovate the armory, it's gonna cost, I predict, $2 million, not all town money. And to renovate it, to rent it, you're gonna get some revenue, but it's gonna be a recurring loser. It's gonna be a recurring expense for the town,
Well, that
but the
needs to
rental
be in
income will
writing.
help offset.
That
But I
needs
can
to
say
be in writing.
it's a loser, but it's a community asset that's a winner, in my opinion. That's just me. Nathaniel thinks differently, and that's fine. I saw a hand up over here, Mr. Tucker.
We also kind of need clear definition of what the building actually is being used for. I think that's the thing, some of us live in that area.
Right.
And it's really easy to hear, see, this is my first time hearing all this, and just me living in the area and knowing the history of the building and whatnot, to me, it doesn't seem clearly, I haven't heard anybody really define what the building is being used for.
Right.
It just seems like we were talking a lot about how
There
much
is
it's gonna
none.
cost, what's it gonna cost, who can do what for it. And at the end of the day, no matter how much you fix it, if you do or don't fix it, if nobody knows what it's being used for, how do we know it's an asset or not to our community?
Well, let me give you one quick free infomercial. This is just my vision, but I've had a lot of people here probably say yes. If they were to renovate the building, I envision Zach Whitlow at DBI, the Chamber of Commerce, and Yvonne Jackson Wilson having offices in there. During the day, as the sun comes up, it's a senior center where seniors gather, have fellowship, games. Throughout the day, there's programming, perhaps a daycare. As day turns to night or afternoon, there's some educational, kids can play basketball. And then a certain time, on weekends especially, if I wanted to have a wedding or a reunion there, I'd pay the town $500 if a school wanted to have a prom, and there'd be events there after hours. That's my vision. Now, everyone's got a different vision.
So, can I ask what Mr. Miller, because he's shaking his head, I'm curious to know, what is it he thinks is not in agreement with your statement?
Because, and I'm gonna tell you, nobody, you wanna put it in my neighborhood, but nobody has gave any of us down there, like you say, we don't know what's going on. And it's gonna be the same way when they open it up. We still aren't gonna know what's going on.
Well, that-
They're gonna be, listen up,
Because
listen,
you
let
don't
me talk.
wanna know what's
Let's
going
let
on.
me
No,
talk.
hold on, let
Trying to tell you what's
Let Mr.
Let me
Miller have the
talk.
floor.
Let me talk.
Let Mr.
Let me
Miller-
talk. This is why I'm asking for council to intervene, so we can get everything down pat, and then that way, you can't set your rule, or you can't have your shade tree meetings, and
Can I make a motion?
Hold on, Mr. Miller, I'm gonna recognize Ann Stiles, and then Mr. Nash will make a motion.
So maybe that's what council needs to do.
That's,
Communicate better.
On how it's going to be used, and then put that out.
I move that the town of Blackstone
Mr. Nash has the floor.
hire a business plan creator, whoever it be, I don't care. It is not gonna be a town staff person. There's too much, again, no offense to you, I love both of you, but this is what we will deal with for the next 4 years while we're up here. It will be for the next 4. Guys, get a business plan,
There's
community
already one.
voting day.
There is one.
But who created it?
Who
It
created?
was created in
Okay.
the original.
Well, let's publicize
plan.
it.
Where's it
Let's
at?
publicize it.
It's in the original study that we
I
did.
move that whatever it be.
RFP.
RFP. I don't care what it costs the town of Blackstone, because this is beyond ridiculous. We create, I don't care if it, whatever it is. Professional create a business plan that we put out for RFP. And then soon after that we present and advertise to the citizens of Blackstone, we come up with a date for
the
a community
proposed
voting
plan
day.
is, what the
For a
proposed-
community voting day. Guys, we got to move on.
All right, your motion, Mr. Nash, just restating, I'm gonna recognize you in a minute, Ms. Ames. Mr. Nash has moved it for the town to seek an RFP to develop a proposed business plan for the armory, and then to publicize that proposal and to have an actual town voting day, which would include a future motion to write the ballot and include all that. Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
I second.
I'm gonna give a second to Mr. Miller. Discussion. which we've had plenty of. Now, I'm gonna recognize Beverly Ames real quick before we vote.
As a citizen, I've been listening to this for almost, 12 years?
Since '06.
Okay, so, you're talking about a vote. You want a voting day. You just did a survey online, on paper, and of how many citizens?
68.
In town?
68 responses.
68 responded.
How
3,500, 3,700 people?
how in-depth were those actual questions? It was,
Did you take the survey?
I did, actually, I took it 5 times. I took it for each family member. Correct. So out of the 64, 5 were my phone family.
Right.
But that survey, but the survey, the survey did have clues as to what the respondents want. And Yvonne did a good job of steering.
I agree.
Right.
But what I'm pointing out is, out of 3,700 people, 68 responded.
Correct.
And 5 of them, he just admitted, came from his household.
So we've got 8, not including us up here, we've got 8 citizens in here tonight. So that's already, I mean, we're only gonna hear from 8 people if we were to actually try to do so. So that's why we have to put it out there. Get the business model. As if the town were gonna keep it, get the business model. Let's do something. And in the meantime, I think the Armory people should be able to do whatever they want in there. Town forces, I don't care.
But my concern is you're gonna put money out to do a voting day when you had, less than 2% respond?
It'll be very modest. To have an election in Blackstone costs the town about $8,000. The town voting day, the way it's been discussed informally, would be a week-long period where only registered voters would come in here. Town staff would check the names. Observers could make sure that if they have concerns about the validity of the election. We don't want anybody voting 5 times on town voting day, if it's ever happened.
Trust me.
But there will be people who are convinced that's going to, the thing that's so sad about this. There's so much mistrust. There are people who don't trust the voting day. But Mr. Nash has a motion. It's been duly seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? I will ask for a roll call vote, starting with Colonel Tom.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. The town will issue the RFP and present the findings hopefully as soon as possible.
Okay, so no, that will exclude the May 30th date that council has to make a decision.
There's no Armory Fest now. We're waiting on the RFP. One more time, Jeanette Baronish, and then we're going to.
I just have one question.
Yes.
If there is a Blackstone voting day on the Armory, is it going to include businesses that have a vested interest in
Registered voters. You can't, if you start going into, well, Sally Smith, she kind of comes to town 3 days and cleans houses. You could maybe have business licenses, but I think you got to stick with registered voters. That's just me. I mean, you're going to start getting into all kinds of.
Because trust me, businesses have a huge vested interest. I mean, my own parents have one. But
Sure.
You can't.
But they couldn't vote for Eric for council.
Correct.
I mean, All right, moving right along. Thank you. Listen.
Get somebody.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
As a
Sierra.
suggestion,
Yes.
I was just thinking, I don't know how well it was publicized, I didn't know about a survey in the past. However, if you really want people's opinions, if you're gonna put together a business plan of what they can anticipate the use of the building to be, since it has been done so well, you say up to this point, why not before your voting week, allow tours so that they can see what progress has been made up to this point? That can help people to make a decision as to if they feel like it's going in the right direction or not.
You could actually have the voting take place inside the Armory.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that you wanted to do, but that would make people in the community feel more involved. They would be making more of an informed decision
Yes.
if they were seeing something.
The most important thing that Mr. Miller said tonight, and also Mr. Tucker, that's your maiden name? Tucker Jones said, and this is where the buck stops with me and all of us, if a resident of Blackstone, especially someone in Ward A, feels that they have not been communicated, that buck stops here, and it means we presided over a process that was not pure. And that's not the Armory Group's fault, because I know they're Walter Mack, let's just say, Walter Mack's gonna watch this. He's very project-driven, he loves his town, but sometimes he may, in his drive to get things done, may not dot all the i's and cross all the t's. That's why it's so important to have everything go through the manager, and this is good stuff. Even though I know y'all are all rolling your eyes, you're tired of it, we're getting there. Again, long game, folks, long game. You got to see the long game. Moving right along. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Where are we, Mr. Staff? Where are we? Broadband.
Consent.
Broadband service.
Broadband service, right here.
If you guys remember, we were going to apply for a broadband wireless broadband grant with the Tobacco Commission. We received affirmative comment from the Tobacco Commission to proceed on with an application, but there was a significant cost to the town. It was a 50-50 grant of any sort of infrastructure that was built or constructed. About that time, Lake Country Internet,
David Varner
came to the council, and it seemed like the solution for many of our broadband internet issues. There was ultimately an agreement that was ironed out that he was allowed to put a weather station up on our water tank. Well, sadly, the part about him providing unlimited internet service, I think has fallen on a couple issues. One of which at this point, it's not practical financially. And I think he has presented us but I think he's working with Microsoft, and I did follow up that Microsoft may be able to do it, but getting it from the Mid-Atlantic broadband at the water tank, according to him, was impractical. And I don't know the dollar figures. The other issue is that he's presented us with an agreement, and I'd like to refer this maybe to a committee or something. This guy's weather station is benign. That's not a problem. But the deal was we were going to be provided with internet.
By October 1st.
You guys didn't agree that it would be impractical or too expensive or any of those kinds of things. You guys said, you do that for us, we'll let you put the tank on.
Right.
But now if it's no fault of mine, I can't perform.
No.
Well, I would be in agreement with, and it can go to committee, that's fine, but whatever our internet bill is each month, that's what his rent is for that tower.
I would say after October, if we don't take it off, I just want to have it clear, are you going to do it or not?
Yeah.
Not, it's too expensive, and I didn't anticipate, and David.
I'm going to refer this to buildings and properties because it's our water tank.
Should have done his homework.
Right.
You need to have a deadline.
Well, here's
October.
something else I discovered. You know, he impressed us that night in broadband. We all perk up at broadband. And I'm ashamed to tell you, I didn't know this, but Jet Broadband charges, or Shentel, $50 a month. His cost is going to be $70 a month. I'm not even sure how valid his product's going to be from the cost-wise.
The validity to the town is.
We get free internet.
Cheaper than
Right.
CenturyLink.
Right.
Again, if he cannot provide the broadband, I'd say we add up all of our internet bills here, and that's what his annual rent is for that tower.
Yeah, I'm going to refer that proposal to the Buildings and Properties Committee because it's our water tank.
How much you think that'll be?
All right. Moving right along, Mr. Norbeck, 6th Street ditch easement.
The construction work has been completed at the Blevins property, based on what the contract was. I'm requesting, again, if you guys have an answer, do we want to do, and I think some council people would wanted an easement, some wanted a liability agreement. Is that still an issue for you guys? The work is done. Do we drop it? But we just need to codify somehow. If something happens to the pipe now, we have a 1-year warranty on the work.
Have you seen it? Do you approve of the project? Does it meet your inspection?
They had to come back a couple times.
Okay.
One, the head wall was a little shaky, and he came back and did a fine job. Jason actually saved the day and got the head wall looking good. And then Jason came back where they had to put cement grout around where the pipe comes in, and Jason's come back and done that. So.
Doing the right thing is never easy, but or cheap. Mr. Colonel Tom, I know you have strong opinions on this.
I think that we should do an easement because this was something that was done to Ms. Blevins' property long ago. Nope, the property owner didn't ask to have a pipe run through their yard, and it's town stormwater that's running through it. And I think we own it.
Well, is it town runoff is going through Philip Arms' pipe?
Pardon?
Is it the same situation with Philip Arms' pipe?
There's some similarities because the town did a significant amount of work on Phillips Ditch. A portion of that would have to be removed and then additional pipe laid. Her ditch was piped in end to end. It was failing in spots. In his situation, what's there already is not failing. He just wants to basically extend it farther down and continue the pipe on down.
Right.
There's some similarities because the town did get into Philip Arms' ditch, but it's a little different.
In addition to this, and take this into perspective as if this was your house, and you want to sell your house, you have to disclose that that pipe's there, and if the easement's not there, you have to disclose that, oh, it might break and you're going to have to pay for it at $20,000, $30,000 when you're trying to sell your house. I think we own it.
Yeah, you're going to have a reluctant buyer, and you're going to have to be dropping the price tremendously. Members of council, I want to commend Ms. Blevins. You've been very patient. I know this has been a very trying time for you. I know this dry weather has probably not broken your heart lately. It's been nice and dry. Members, is that a motion, Mr. Colonel Tom?
If
Yeah,
not-
I make a motion that we, do an easement on Ms. Blevins' property for the area where the pipe is.
A permanent town easement for maintenance.
Maintenance easement.
Permanent maintenance easement.
And Christine Hasbrook is second. Any further discussion?
Where does that easement
Start and end?
stop as opposed to how does the ditch stay clean at the front, at the upper end, to prevent problems on our end?
Well, the easement would be the terminus of her property at either end. We
Right.
just have to define that somehow, where her property meets a certain line. We did find there's not an alley open back there. It was abandoned some time ago, vacated. I don't know if you knew that, but there is a ordinance of vacation from the town where that alleyway back there had been duly abandoned.
So it's her
just like we did
property.
Powell Street.
Right.
I can get a copy from Ms. Blevins or anybody else that needs a copy. And we were lucky to find it because they're not easy to find and
Right.
we're in the file. How do we handle the other ones? I don't have a good answer for that. I really don't know the solution on Jenny Davis or Jenny Bunn's property or upstream. I don't have a resolution for those matters.
But they're different because there's no place on Jenny Davis Bunn's property where the town went years ago and put a culvert in there, right.
You were asking, where does it start and where does, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, which would obviously be the terminus of the property.
I would say where the project started and where the project stopped. I mean, where the terminus of the property.
That
like you said.
particular easement would be for that. We'd have to have separate easements for each property owner anyhow. And each property owner technically is.
The argument has been made before about it's the town's water, but what happens now that it goes under the road and it goes to Mr. Nunley's old house? I can't think of that gentleman.
Joseph Banks.
And then my uncle's house, the next, as you go down, and Sam Moncure's house. Well, if the town's water, then does that continue on to where that needs, I mean,
Well, that is what Mr. Nash, or what you're saying is because the project's been done, we'll be increasing the volume of water going.
you would, no, because you're gonna have the same amount of water coming
Right.
to that creek no matter what.
We're hoping we're managing it better.
Right. It's a fair question, but I hate to say this, but it's one of those things I think you're gonna have to wait and see. There's no real easy answer here in this. We're in a little bit of a gray area, no doubt, that our forefathers put us in. There were no women on council back then.
The pipe being bigger now than it was before, it's not gonna be coming out like a fire hose.
True,
So
be less
it's not gonna
pressure.
be going down,
True.
downstream eroding as it was before.
Good point, good point. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll go with a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Is that correct? Mr. Nash is quiet over there. Very good. All right, budget billing. This is just an update on, council did change the budget billing so more folks will qualify.
Codifies it, and I would like to point out the little graph at the
Yeah,
last page.
tell the public what's going on there.
For the budget billing program, 135 customers had applied, 32 are enrolled, 29 were declined because they could not meet the new standards, not the old standards,
the
but
new
the new
ones.
standards.
Wow.
25 opted out. Some individuals chose not to do it who had applied, and 49 are awaiting documentation or a decision by staff to approve it.
That's good. That's progress. That's progress.
Okay, well, y'all change the policy so we let Peter adopt this, if this is the policy
Yes,
y'all
the,
wanna
the,
go with.
the policy, the previous policy was if in a 6-month period you had been late, you were ineligible. Mr. Miller was able to convince council to change that to basically, if you apply and you don't owe the council any back utilities. Currently, you can qualify. However, if you're, the first time you're late with your budget billing, you get kicked out, which is no surprise there. But.
And you have to wait a year.
And you have to wait a year before you can reapply. So you have the, go ahead, Mr.
Move
Nash.
to approve the budget billing program as presented in the packet.
Second.
With
Mr.
those
Miller.
stipulations that you don't have to, as long as you're in your current, as long as you're current with your current electric bill.
If you owe taxes, it doesn't count because that's not a utility. So that's.
And as utility bills, current on your utility bills, I think there was some discussion at the last council meeting, is it taxes, is it, any of the, we've kept it strictly for utility bills.
All right. You've heard the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Opposed? All right, Mr. Taylor.
If you want me to pull out, go ahead. Anyway, on this budget plan, there's no time limit on this. You might not want to do it now, you might want to do it later.
That's right. And I don't mind telling you my personal opinion out there. For those who have a hard time, it's probably better. But in the summertime, you're going to pay more than you normally would pay.
Now, he does have a good point on the other hand, though. Say if you enroll, are you enrolled for the whole year, 12 months? You can't bail out halfway through?
No, I think you can bail out.
At any time?
Yeah, I would say so. If somebody says, "Hey, this ain't working for me, I'll stick
Okay.
my money in a cookie jar," I think we certainly make it
fine.
available.
Yeah.
We can't force them to stay.
Right. That motion carries 7-0. I'm gonna come back to, unfinished business number 4. I've had a funeral and a wedding the last 2 months, and I've not done my homework on my Hometown Heroes Committee, but that will be taken care of. Next on unfinished business number 5, to set a date for a retreat. Not at the Armory, Mr. Miller, we're not gonna have. I couldn't resist. Let's pick a date, folks. Ms. Hasbrook has been patient. This is one of her goals for the town. Let's have a retreat.
Why don't we let Ms. Hasbrook pick a date?
I have 5 dates I can propose.
Let's go.
Saturday the 7th,
Of what, September?
September, sorry.
That's Arts and
My
Crafts?
mind.
Is that Arts and Crafts?
That's the week before Arts
Week
and
before Arts
Crafts.
and Crafts, okay.
Or September 28th, the end of the month.
Okay.
October 5th, 19th, or 26th,
All Saturdays.
all Saturdays.
And you're looking at maybe like a 9 to 2, something like that?
9 to 2, and I think if we have it out of town, their cell phones off,
Agreed.
and we will probably continue our plan for the Armory and other issues that come up.
What are some venues? I know Civic League was discussed, the Officers Club was discussed. That's about it as far as close to out of town, but not in Richmond or South Hill or somewhere. What's your pleasure?
What was the October dates?
5th, 19th, to 26th?
26th.
How about the 5th, first of the month?
The 5th through the 19th in October.
Well,
September, I'd rather stay away from.
I would too.
I think
just
October
open
grass.
26th is the Wine and Beer Festival, I believe.
When is that?
October 26th,
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
close to Halloween anyway,
Okay,
so.
I'll take that off.
I like the 5th. Anyone object to the 5th? It's a Saturday.
I'll take a 5th.
There you go. 9 to 2, or 9 to 2 or 3. We'll hammer out the time. And
Ask the Civic League if it's all right to, I mean, I don't see why not.
October 5th, you said 9 to 2, 9 to 3?
Well,
9 until.
well, 9 to, it's a Saturday. 9 to 3 is reasonable. 9 to 3. We finish early. And we'll shoot for the Civic League.
That'd be good.
All right. How about that? We don't need to vote on that. But staff will see if we can schedule that and book that.
It's Mr. Branch is who we, Ralph Branch is who we reach out to.
Yep. All right, moving right along to the reconductoring bids. You have some bids in your packet, and the town manager is not recommending the cheapest because the cheapest didn't provide bond.
And if you look in the ad solicitation, it says a certified check or cashier's check payable to the town. The satisfactory bid bond executed by corporate surety, licensed under the law of Virginia, shall be submitted with each bid equal to 5%.
How much does it cost to have a bid bond?
The insurance person here, I don't know. But it's not for the full amount.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just curious. I mean,
This is the project that's going to go to Show Best, right?
This is the project that will start at the intersection of Brunswick and 8th Street, and it'll be kind of a continuation of the 3-phase leg that runs to Show Best Furniture. It goes up and then goes to 2nd Street and then back to Show Best.
just not a huge difference in the one that has no bid bond, and so, but it is a big difference in the next
Next guy was
guy.
$148,000.
I move to go with the lowest responsive
Bingo.
bidder
Good answer.
of $72,900.
That's River City Construction. They're out of where?
Little Washington, North Carolina.
I second that.
All right, Mr. Miller has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? Due to the dollar value, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Colonel Tom.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Next, yes.
Pacific League, is that on Mount Nebo Road?
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
1018. 1018.
All right, next you have a generic resolution for BDOT, which we need to adopt just simply to be eligible for revenue sharing projects, which we've been successful with in the past. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right. Colonel Tom seconded Mr. Nash's motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Ongoing projects we should roll here.
Dilapidated buildings, we don't have anything hot on the agenda. We do have one house on Nottaway Avenue, property owner has asked to be burned, and I've passed that to Cody Lewis to see if the fire department would be interested in doing that. I haven't heard back from him, and make sure. It's a wood frame house, been empty for a very long time, obviously on the left-hand side, and it's a one-story, and it's kind of a shotgun style. It goes farther back than it is wide, and it belongs to Roosevelt Roads. I don't know if there's any relationship.
The house down next to Miss Hawks on West Broad.
The blue
Or
one?
East Broad.
Blue Hawk.
The blue house.
Is that
Tucker
one in
House.
the?
Yeah, well, we might as well talk about it while we're here.
That's a.
It is assessed at $9,000, okay? It was recently purchased, and I don't know how much it was purchased for by a Mr. Vaughn, okay? Mr. Vaughn bought it at a tax sale, okay? The house is a total mess. I mean, it needs to come down. Mr. Vaughn has offered to sell the house and the property to Southside Outreach.
Oh.
There's money in the grant to demolish it, okay? But he wants to be paid the assessed value.
$9,000.
And what if you don't? I mean, he's still gotta be enforced to tear it down.
Ultimately, I can go back and put the thumbs on him, but what we're proposing, and we're gonna discuss this at this, on the 24th, we've got our management team and rehab board, that we use, program income money to buy it, no town funds.
Yeah, but
Ultimately,
that-
they're town funds.
That takes
but
away from the next person that we could use for weatherization funds or something. I mean,
It takes away from somebody else. I
It
don't
does.
mind him making a profit. It's assessed value. If you remember, we paid assessed value for Frankie Ingram's, when we built a house across the property line.
Yep.
And what the goal would be is use program income, buy the property, deed it to Southside Outreach, which is Earl and Earlene, if you guys remember them, they do the housing stuff for it, and have them build a single-family home on that property and turn it into a homeowner's opportunity. And I think that the deed would
Well, if we
revert.
deed it to them, why wouldn't they just pay for the house outright and they get the lot?
Well, because they haven't offered to do that, we're gonna ask them at the,
I mean, they're gonna obviously be receiving rent from the home.
yeah, we're trying to find a path forward.
Yeah.
Without
I
having
just
to beat
hate
the
to
guy
take
over the head.
$9,000 worth of weatherization funds from someone else.
It's not weatherization, no,
Well,
that's
but-
town money.
Correct, but ultimately, that program income gets used
For
to
weatherization.
do other projects.
Yeah.
To do plumbing, electrical and all
Correct.
that.
You recommend doing the $9,000 if you had your
I
heart?
offered him 6 and see if he would take it, and he did not accept it. I asked him if there was some number in the middle, let me know, and he was gonna give me a call back, and I have not heard
All
back.
right. Well, I'd entertain a motion to authorize the town manager to go up to 9, but continue to negotiate.
I do not agree. I believe we should research our other opportunities before offering anything
I
else
mean, we
to
can
this.
just sit there and tell him, you're gonna sell this thing,
I mean, I'm sorry.
or you're gonna tear it down. I don't